Oh, it's a very unglorious morning. Welcome back to Krown's Crypto Cave. I've been having all sorts of electrical, also computer issues throughout this morning, and I've even blown another socket. So Jesus Christ, man, what a great start. Anyways, very little to talk about that's new on the higher term timeframes on Bitcoin today. However, on the short term timeframes, perhaps a few things to be interested in as we work our way through Sunday, getting ready for CME Open later today at 5 p.m. and also, of course, the regular market open at 9:30 a.m. Eastern time tomorrow for U.S. markets, which that is going to be driving a big part of this analysis, of which we covered in depth yesterday, and I'll be briefly going over it today. With that said, let's put the interest over here on the Krown application, which we found at app.krown.net. And what do we see? We do see that open interest actually coming down 50 million from yesterday to today. Bitcoin more or less holding a range, slightly up throughout that, but now we are kind of on the precipice of the edge of this range that we've been living in for the last month and a half, since about late August-ish, and that is in the open interest range between where we are right here at 1.9.5 billion and 2.1.5 billion. So what we're looking for is a break of the long-term range in correlation with the break of the open interest range. Also going to be lining up naturally, or at least if it is going to be efficacious, going to be naturally lined up with historical volatility percentile and volume reads that we suspect should be action in confluence. Anyways, with this right here, it does suggest that we are going to be in for a little bit of excitement likely this week. Looking at Bitcoin dominance, what do we see? Coming down a slight amount from yesterday today. We did check out the Bitcoin dominance chart yesterday. I don't really have anything to add that's not that I haven't said new there or last there. Basically looking for a macro reversal off that current region, but still kind of going to kind of oscillate between this like low 57.5% region up to low 60s%. But long term, it does look like a reversal to myself. Anyways, looking at the fear and greed index, also popping up 2 points from yesterday to today as well. And I imagine that nothing's going to be new in the data tab. Let's just take a quick gander there, and let's see, is the intuition right today? Yeah, pretty much. I don't really see anything of note right here. 0.01% is par for the course as far as global funding rate goes. Everything else is mostly standard. And with that said, let's go to the actual price action charts themselves. Nope, that's not what we want to look at. We want to look at spot price action right here. As Saturday was what? Saturday was as sideways gets in about $100 range, actually, between quite literally about 10,498 and 2 cents to all the way up to 10,606 and 36 cents. This is on GDAX, so a little bit more than $100 range yesterday, which means weekends are for the sandpaper. Anyways, looking at this right here, let's see how the daily momentum also just kind of flipped around. We do see that daily Stokes are doing what? They are technically down right now, but looking like they might want to pop back up. Let's see what the reverse Stoke indicator cross say about that in order to actually keep them to the downside. And yes, with any sort of a closure today below 10,658 and 30 cents, we will see them naturally hang on to the downside once again. And what do we see on daily RSI? Still really neutral, but if you did have to say something about it, slight downwards twist on it, but not really too, anything too crazy on top of that. And what else do we want to look at? Maybe daily Jewel. Is there anything lining up right here? No, I'd say that this is a non-signal, non-nothing. It's absolutely butt because there's nothing there. Anyways, let's follow up with the 12-hour right here and see if anything's changed here as well. And what do we see? We do see Bitcoin still kind of crawling along that 200 simple and 200 exponential moving average. It does look like short term, it does want to pop back up towards around 10,650-ish region and test around there. That's not necessarily saying that we're actually going to, blast on through it, but I do think that short term Bitcoin is gearing up for another $50 move to the upside, a little bit more than $50 move. Again, this is the weekend after all, so it's very exciting, as you can see. And looking at momentum oscillators, it looks like we will be naturally remaining to the downside on 12-hour Stokes as long as we're closing below about a little bit above that area that I just kind of gave about 10,600, basically 10,700-ish region. So anywhere between about 10,650 and 10,700. I wouldn't mind a nice wick up there over the Sunday day, but realistically, I don't believe that we're going to be breaking even the short-term range as it is right now. Bitcoin more or less testing both sides and also molesting both sides too. So range traders are having a good time. But as far as this looks, it looks like we're in for mostly a boring Sunday. Anyways, for what it's worth, 12-hour Stokes are coming down pretty aggressively right here, getting into the bearish control zone for the first time since late September. It's been a little bit of time, but not anything too crazy. 12-hour RSI, same thing here too. I mean, there's really not much to make out of this. Slight bearish twist. However, long term it is constructive, but realistically, it's neutral more than anything in the in the short term right now. But if you'd have to say something on it, yes, technically a little bit twisted to the bear side. Yes, I get that. Anyways, let's go over to the 4 hour. What do we see here? We do see short term Bitcoin looking like it does want to pick up momentum. And yeah, like I said, anywhere around the 200 simple here on the 4 hour looks about right to me for a short term test around 10,650ish region. I don't have much strong views on this. My strong views were presented yesterday in line with traditional markets, of which I do believe that we're going to see that come into confluence with this coming week. Probably sooner rather than later within this coming week as well. I actually do think that this week's going to be pretty interesting. Anyways, looking at this, yes, what do we see? 4 hour Stokes are popping up, but they're going to be meeting this trend line right here, of course. Oh, I guess I already have it in there. Nice little regression coming in and protecting against the bullish control zone. Actually, let's make that a little bit more forthright. Something like this would be a little bit better, and that would suggest that yes, we have a little bit more here, which is why I am saying that we probably do test a little bit higher short term. But again, this is really cutting hairs here, as I really dislike using this kind of stuff in a on a Sunday like this. Looking at 4 hour RSI, constructive-ish with a slight upwards twist in the short term. Yes, and then 4 hour historical volatility percentile. I want to be following up on this one as well. This is something that I've been keeping a keen eye on because it is speaking towards likely the resolution of our greater range. Now, there's two ways to draw this, and one correlates with the greater range, like the macro range, and one correlates with more like our kind of like our long-term daily range right now. And the daily range, I do believe, is in the process of breaking right here. If you draw a regression right through it, it would speak towards the resolution between the $10,000 low, or I guess 10,100 if you're looking at a daily closure, and about $11,000 high right here. And it would suggest that we probably are going to be breaking that this week. Drawing this out right here, what do we see? We do see that it is more or less within that sweet spot of about 75% full, which does mean that it's quite likely to break. Now, the longer term contraction phase, I don't necessarily know if this is going to work on if this is going to work on the 4 hour, because we'd expect to see it on a higher term time frame too. And it's worth noting because it might come about later, but this one could likely speak towards the greater resolution of the more macro range in this case, which is probably between the $12,000 region to the upside and the $9,000 region to the downside. But as it is right now, that one is a more experimental idea. The other one is actually something that I'm putting quite a bit of weight on, and why I am looking for a nice big move coming into this into this week. Which starts tomorrow, actually. Come to think of it. Anyways, what do we see on the 3 hour? Or sorry, what do we see on the 4 hour momentum? Yeah, momentum range to the upside as long as above 10,450. Obviously, that will change with the next closure as well, but not anything too crazy. And by the way, this is a completely fresh look on the charts myself this morning, as I've been dealing with literally electrical issues all fucking day. It's been terrible, and I make it even worse. Anyways, looking at 3 hour historical volatility percentile, we are extremely low, in line with the 4 hour as well right now. Actually, both of them are in single digits. The 3 hour, quite literally a zero read for multiple hours on end. So that does suggest that we might even see a short-term move today within the context of the short-term region. Now, like I said, I'm actually not necessarily looking for this to break on a Sunday, but if it does start to carry on until the point where CMEs open up at 5 p.m. Eastern time, then that's about the point where I would start to say it's game on once again. Looking at 3 hour Stokes, what do we see? They are popping back up to the same area that, if we were to draw a trend line on this one, would be the area that we found the last few tops and going into the end of September right here. And that means that we will naturally keep momentum to the upside as long as we're above 10,550. So we're starting to see it build upon each other, going from the 4 hour to the 3 hour, and I imagine the 2 hour is going to is going to be even more aggressive than that. And yes, it is. 10,590 is the magical area, and technically right now it is actually downside angled. But I wouldn't, I wouldn't put it past it to kind of snake around here. I do think that's going to get another try up, probably somewhere around 10,650 to 10,700. And then the real question is, do we actually break it or not? I would be looking at this as a Sunday, probably not, and probably does, still remain within the range until CMEs open at the very least. So that is going to give us plenty of time to just fill out some space. And of course, here it is of interest as well that we do see 2 hour historical volatility percentile incredibly low. So the 2, 3, and 4 hour are all massively contracted in the extremely short term. Now, again, in the longer context of that, we do have other things to be aware of. But even in the short term, it is actually suggesting, as well as the hourly, very aggressively, that we probably do get a move probably around the time that CMEs open today. I do think that is rather likely, and hourly stokes are turning back onto the upside, and they will remain to the upside as long as we're above 10,544. Now, the hourly is a little bit too low of a time frame for this one to really be that dependable on. I mean, of course, it still works. My point is that, you know, when it doesn't match up with the 2, 3, and 4 hour, it does make me think that we're just going to see some floaty behavior, as we do see slight bifurcation between the low term time frames. But we're really splitting hairs right now. It's not like there's not, like I said, too many major new things to be talking about. But that's pretty much it on the lower term time frames. Going over the 2-day and the 3-day, with which I do believe that we close a 2-day tonight. Yes, indeed we do. That's going to be the big one, as long as we are below, let's call it 10,750 especially, or even 10.7, you know, more aggressively. This is still a more bearish look on this, as the 2-day does get things a little bit better than the daily for spot price. It's kind of like the daily for CMEs, which I think is just a more obvious chart as well. Anyways, we do have a downtrend right here. Here's our high, here's our lower high, here's our low, or sorry, we actually don't have our, well, technically we do, yeah. High, low, lower high, lower low. Lower high again, but we do have a higher low right here. So you can kind of interpret this as, as your first break off of this formation right here, and then something new going on right here, of which right now we do have a series of higher lows, but also lower highs. Now, does this shape out to be more bearish than bullish? I would argue so, yes. But the areas to maintain this, or sorry, the areas to essentially govern this are basically the same things that we've been speaking about, throughout this video and throughout all the videos for the last couple of weeks. As long as we're below 11,000, not anything too crazy to be spoken about to the upside. As long as we're above 10,100, not anything too crazy to be spoken about to the downside. However, with the next sort of even 12-hour closure, above or below, let's call it 11,000 or below 10,100, I would call that resolution on this formation. And if we do head on to the upside, the same regions from August will still be relevant. That being the 11.5 region, that being the 11.8 region, then that being the $12,000 region. I understand that I'm kind of like busting through this right now, but we've done this so many times that I figured that most people are already aware, and I'll just briefly chart it out right here. There's 11.5, there's 11.8, there's 12. Actually, 12 would be a little bit more like right here. There we go. Yeah, it's 1250 right there. That's actually perfect. So all those relevant regions from August would still come into play as well. To the downside, below 10.1 on a 12-hour or daily total closure, we actually do have a measured move to be made here, as this is technically speaking, or if it did break to the downside, it technically would be a descending triangle, and that would actually be suggesting a move all the way down to about 91 and 9,200. You will notice that there's multiple supports along the way, one at about 96.50 and one about 94.50. I would be looking for very, 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 very short-term bounces there, but ultimately I would be looking for price action to come all the way back down here. Again, if Bitcoin does break below about 10,100-ish region, that is also in line with, if we were to throw in the volume profile, with the point of control on this formation as it is. And one of the thickest nodes actually on the board here, if we were to pull this all the way out, incorporating even multiple years of price action, yeah, we can see right here, it's actually pretty damn thick. Of course, only overshadowed by the 4,000 volume node, which we put in early 2019, I believe it was. Yeah, just almost 2 years ago now. It's kind of crazy. But yeah. So this one would be rather significant, as you can see, and it's the highest volume node that we've seen in the last year as well. So if Bitcoin did come back down around there, I do believe that it'd be extremely, extremely, extremely strong bounce. And does it potentially produce a reversal? Yes, I do think that it's possible. And if this area does fail, there is one there is one more major one, which I would put at, or as I've been saying, back down somewhere around the mid to low $7,000 region. And you can see that a lot of price action kind of pivots around this region, especially throughout 2019 and 2020 right here, getting these major moves to the upside and these major moves to the downside. So if Bitcoin were to fail 9,000, I would start to look down towards that region. But seeing as it's so far away right now, and seeing as we haven't even failed 10,000 as it is, I don't think that it's really appropriate to be speaking about that. More so, just like in the periphery, if it does happen to happen. Anyways, let me just go check out on the time. Okay, nice. We are recording and the microphone's working, so at least that's good to go this morning. Fuck, man, I did something right. Jesus. I feel like such a fucking moron. Also, in line with this measure move on the breakdown would be the daily 377 exponential moving average as well. So really good points of confluence right there. Measured move, liquid zone, volume profile, and major movement averages. So all those things coming into play if and only if Bitcoin breaks below 10.1. Again, technically speaking, as it stands, as long as Bitcoin does not break 10.1, this current area that we're bouncing off of right now technically should be viewed as a potential reversal zone. And even right now, there we go. I think that we're going to see that $50 move. Could it be the $50 move? I'm rich. Fucking nice. I'm rich. We're mooning. We're mooning. All right, so there you go. Sometimes that TA bullshit. Sometimes it might even work. Let's see how high we get here. I do think, because it is a Sunday, we might get a wick back up here towards like 10.7 more like. But there's your 10.650 tick, and just kind of hanging around for right now. But what we should do is we should also go over to the 3-day as well, which I believe is closing maybe tonight. If it is closing tonight, I definitely want to take some time on it. No, it's closing tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern time. But yes, as far as the 3-day goes, as long as below 10.7, it is bearishly biased here. And while I do think that we probably test around 10.7, which maybe we just saw right now at 10.650, I'd probably be looking for this one to be pushed back. And as you can see right now, it's really too early to judge this one. But maybe by the time that I finish this video, we'll actually have more clarity on that situation. But quickly backing off of that, off that first area for right now, that's to be expected. I want to see where this one ends, to be fair. But yeah. Anyways, what else do we want to check out? I think we'll briefly go through traditional markets. I would strongly suggest checking out yesterday's video if you want a more in-depth look. But what's driving my bias on Bitcoin here is coming into next week, lined up with all of the reads, especially on the 4-hour historical volatility percentile that we looked at earlier, suggesting that we do see a move, and that move likely actually does break the $10,000 or $11,000 range. Assuming that open interest kind of still where it is as we see right now. Anyways, as it stands, this would be your proverbial bull trap, and this does look like it wants to come down coming into next week as well. A clear rejection on the 10 simple on the weekly, and that is likely going to mark the top side of our range coming into next week. So I would be looking for this to probably have an up open into Monday, but that up open likely gets sold into, and I'll be looking for it to come down back into the low side of the range sometime early next week, back down towards 10.8 region. And seeing as these assets are pretty damn correlated, especially on the higher term timeframes and especially the macro, we would very likely look for Bitcoin to trade with it. So, does this open back up and maybe trade back towards, 11.4 or 11.350? I think that's very possible, but I'd be looking at that as likely a little bit of a fakey before getting ready to go the other direction. Looking at the tech and in financial sector, we can kind of come up with the same thing here as well. Bitcoin trades a little bit more with the techs, which is XLK, and that comprises a large portion of NASDAQ futures, by the way. What do we see here? There's your proverbial bull trap again as well, and yes, likely gearing up for another move down to about 110-ish region. And I think this is a little bit more obvious on the weekly as well. Clear rejection on the 10 simple, and likely to play out a range between the 10 simple and the 21 now, and perhaps this could still be a major macro top as it is. Looking at XLF, what do we see here? Same sort of thing. In fact, financials are looking much worse. We are going to be looking at an impending death cross, which could even be confirmed, maybe not this week, but probably next week, if we end, especially here or lower, or just anywhere below about $25. But the point that I want to make is that, when we're looking at XLF and XLK, which comprise most of NASDAQ, what we'd be seeing here is that XLF actually looking a little more bearish is suggesting that really it was the techs that are keeping NASDAQ up to begin with. And if these guys want to get going, of which that impending death cross would kind of look like it wants to, that probably does bring everything down, and everyone kind of respects their major indice or major Boris, and that likely carries on to the rest of the market. As you can see right here, E-mini futures for SPY, not going to be any different really. Major rejection at the 10 simple and down. So it's actually the financials that look worse than everything else, obviously, but that can be a little bit of a harbinger of death and despair, especially in markets like this. So it's important to go through your, if you are trading traditional markets, it's important to go through your major indices, your major Borises, then your subsectors, then your sectors, then your subsectors, then your individual stocks. And that's kind of what we're doing right here, except I'm doing it in a backwards fashion. Looking at E-mini futures for SPY, yep, we see the same chart basically. This one obviously not as good because it didn't even make a new high on the weekly above the last high in middle of September, but this one does have potential hidden bearish divergence in play here too. If it does confirm a local high right here, I would actually confirm it as a local high as is. I think that this is one of the times to be aggressive on a read like this, because what we're seeing is a bearish reset on weekly Stokes. They're popping back up to the bullish control zone and going to test crest around there. And as that happens, you know, it looks to me like we're just putting a lower high. So, you know, putting all the puzzle pieces together, it would suggest that likely pressure is down. And when we go look at some of the major leaders of this market, like Tesla, Apple, Microsoft, what do we see here? Clear reversal on Tesla. Tesla, I still maintain with my long-term parabolic blow off top call, and it's definitely given a try though. To be fair, if anything's going to pull through, it actually might be this one. But for now, I still stick with that. And so that, you know, that's going to carry a lot of weight in the broader market. What about Apple? Same thing here, a rejection right there. Pretty much looks like the same chart as NASDAQ actually. And Microsoft a little bit weaker, I believe. Yes, indeed. This one already getting continuation, probably coming back down to the low side of the range. So checking between all of these ones, which are most of the heavy lifters for these major indices, they all are printing clear reversals. So what we're seeing is rotations. So rotations kind of make it look like the market is staying up a little bit better than what it actually is. Well, that's just not true, as you can see when you actually go through the minutia and check out, you know, what were the strong ones kind of taking a little bit of a break. That's likely going to take everything else down when everything comes back in a concert, of which I would look for that likely to happen over this next week or two, actually. Anyways, can I be wrong? Yep, I'm always wrong. And there you go. Anyways, looking at Link BTC, what do we see here? Still kind of hanging on the stripper pole as it slinks on back down. We did get that move. We almost got that move down to 80,000 Satoshis as I spoke about yesterday or the day before, I believe. I still think that we're gearing up for a move back down around here, maybe a little bit below 80,000 Satoshis, somewhere around 78,000 Satoshis, and also a bounce implied there as well. I don't really have anything else to add on to that. We do see daily momentum oscillators turning down here too, but I do have a rule, and this one's actually rejecting the the bullish control zone, which is nasty as well. But I do have a rule that I really just don't like shorting into the weekly 21. So while I do think that it has some short-term downside there, I would still be careful with it. Link has been the darling of the market and definitely been the biggest surpriser for the last over 3 years. So that definitely deserves a lot of respect in comparison to, you know, something like this, which is going for the full retrace over the next half year to a year. And, you know, this thing could even, did this thing even pop back up to 1,000? Yeah, actually did. We did say this week that it was probably going to have a nice pop back up towards 1,000 Satoshis. Got up to 982. Close enough, I guess. And back down to the fucking crypto abyss you go, you piece of shit. Sorry. I know that some people like really like this kind of stuff, and I have the utmost respect for Cardano. I keep up with the Cardanians all the time. Anyways, let's go look at some more bullshit because we got a little more time. Let's go look at Uni. Uni's got to be good, right? Whoa, okay. So let's just pretend that didn't happen and go down to the hourly. All right, guys, we got some bullish lower lows. We got some of those bullish dumps going on right here. Sorry, I can't fake it right now. Well, it looks like we have a piece of garbage in front of our face. What other things can we find in this market? What about Butyrol versus Bitcoin? We look for that one to usually set the tone versus Bitcoin, or for the Satoshi parents as well. What do we see here? This one probably does pop back up, actually. Yeah, short term it probably does pop back up. You know, maybe a lot of the altcoins do pop back up short term to the upside versus Bitcoin. Let's go look at the Bitcoin dominance chart again. I think that's what it was looking like on this. Very, very long term, extremely bullish. Short term, is it bearish? I mean, what do you make out of a chart like this? Yeah, it probably does come back down and play at the low side of the range. So yeah, altcoins probably do get a little bit of a bouncy bounce, but I believe strongly that the bounce is going to get sold into. I do believe once again that we are seeing a macro reversal in progress here. This is the same area that we've had laid out ever since I think it was like February or March of this year, and well, I'm sticking with it, man. Nothing's really changed. We haven't broke it. We just bounced off of it, and so far in progress. Looking at the monthly, looks like a nice doji dildo reversal to myself as well, although I would like to see a continuation above the top of it, to be fair. What else we want to check out while we're here? I'm just out of curiosity, what's Ripple Me Nipples doing? Down. Looks like we got some down, even just regular down, actually. looking like the weekly is really wanting to play out this death cross too. I'll be looking for this one to come back down to like 17.5 to 17 cents. There's some other ones. Oh yeah, let's go over to my secondary charts for Bitcoin. Is there anything of note here? Anything interesting? Yeah, we do see daily Bollinger Bands are starting to actually get a negative slope. They will get a negative slope with any sort of a close here or lower by end of day. Right now, I would consider this flat. Yes, if we were like measuring it with a ruler, would it technically be slightly negative? Yes, it would, but I do not look at that as playable, especially on a fucking Saturday and Sunday, for the love of God. But this chart right here does speak a lot because we have a few things going on. First and foremost, Bollinger Bands are squeezing like crazy. So now, how many things do we have suggesting that we probably get a move relatively soon? Remember when we looked at the BBWs yesterday, which showed that we were kind of in yearly lows for the Bollinger Band width. Well, we have Bollinger Band width, we have open interest, we have historical volatility percentile on multiple time frames, by the way, and we have volume signature, which we didn't even go over today, but you can kind of see it curtail off right here, very, very simply, and coming into an apex somewhere around mid to late October, and we are about, I'd call that 75% full right now on this formation right here, which is currently, in progress, looking like redistribution. So looking at this right now, it would suggest that we probably do see resolution. I think in this next week, and maybe another week after that if things really drag on through this region. But I do think that this coming week has a high probability, which we'll look at probabilities later. We can obviously forecast them too, but I find that that's less useful than actually looking at the daily, because they do change. It's really subject to change after you get your next closure. But yeah, looking at that on top of our momentum oscillator here, or I guess just your MACD if you want to call it that, your moving average convergence divergence indicator, as some people call it. What do we see? We do see that it's popping up around that zero read. The histogram is completely tailed off, and more importantly, a lot of the time when you do get around that zero read, you do see counter trend pressure, and I believe that's what we're seeing right now. We have not officially crossed to the downside yet, though. I'm curious what CMEs look like here. Yeah, CMEs look similar as well. They will probably cross to the downside on the next tick or two, maybe even on the next open. So when CMEs do open, game is on once again, even though technically it's still Sunday. But I consider that regular markets, and looking at this right here, playing below both the 10 simple and the 20 simple in a bearish posturing, lower period above higher period, while both of them hinting at a negative slope. Only the 10 simple really has a negative slope right now. Would suggest that right now the probability is favoring the downside. Short term, probably like 10,350 test again, but any sort of a closure below this 10,220 test rate, or sorry, 10,220 low right here that we put in on 22nd and 23rd of September is technically going to be your official downtrend, because now we have lower highs and lower lows. As it is right now, we technically have lower highs but also higher lows, technically speaking. This one does look more heavy to me, and it does look like it will inevitably break onto the downside, but that's just my opinion. And again, I do not trade my opinion, I trade technical analysis. At the end of the day, I want to see proof, not promises, and in that case, that means a daily closure below 10,220. That would be my quickest and earliest signal that this baby's actually going to break down. But still, bounces would be along the way. I wouldn't be looking for this one to just cut through in just one singular blow. For whatever reason, people have this weird idea that once a trigger gets initiated, it happens within the next minute. No, unless you're playing the minute chart, then yes. But if you're playing a daily chart, probably looking for that to happen over the next half week to a week. Something like that is more reasonable. But yeah, that would be the earliest indication of a downside breakout. To the upside, technically speaking, you could use 10,850. Would I trust that area? No, I think 11,000 is a lot more trustworthy here. That's mostly because that was the same area that held up all throughout August right here, and well, I just want to see it actually broken first before I get boolah-ish here, because I do think that there's more things angled towards the downside. So I'd more err on the caution of the downside here than upside. Doesn't mean that it can't happen. It's just I want to see 11,000 broken on at the very least a 12-hour, probably a daily, and then yes, I'd just generally be bullish again, looking for moves like I said to 11.5, 11.8, and 12,000 respectively. As it is right now, can we check out the probability panel or also the expected respective moves. Let's check out the probability panel first. Let's look at the probability of us actually breaking the current range. So I'm actually gonna use the more aggressive reads for this. So instead of 11,000, I'll use 10,950. For the downside, I'll use like a new low on this current run. So this would produce a new lower low. So let's just see what the probability panelists say about this. And thank you to Pig for this, as it does get suggested. We have a 58 and about a 30% probability that we do just remain within that range today. It's the most likely thing to happen, of course. Technically speaking, the downside probability has a slight edge over the above target probability. Realistically, though, these things are more or less the same as far as I'm concerned. And what are we most likely to do today? We're most likely to play within this range. In fact, what we really should be looking at is maybe even the medium term range. We would speak more towards like the 10.7 region to the upside and to the downside. There's really not a good way of doing it, but I suppose the current low of this weekend at 350, or sorry, Friday's low at 350, and what would that suggest? Does suggest a little bit more of a little bit of a higher probability of breaking out to the upside, 37% versus 32.5% to the downside. But realistically, when all these are about in the mid 30s, they have equal probability. Is the way that I read that. In 1 in 3 chance, they're going to one of them is going to get hit. Seeing that it's seeing that it is still a weekend, the way that I read this is that we're most likely to just kind of we could probably just even test both sides, completely fine. Not anything too crazy about that, but curious what the 12-hour would say on top of that, as 12-hour probably does mean a little bit more with this current one, as we have about a 61% probability that we just remain within that same range as well. 24.5% to the upside versus 14.25% to the downside. So upside is favored right here, but again, I do think that that being suggested over the weekend is, more indicative that, well, here's the thing, it's basically saying that the bulls have their chance right now, or if the bulls are going to take control, what they're going to do is this is going to be your next higher low right here. So we have low, higher low, higher low, lower high, lower high. This is basically some sort of a symmetrical triangle. And if boo laws make a new high above this baby right here, then we have resolution to the upside, and you probably have like your move to 11.5 relatively quick. I don't think that that's what's happening, but that's what the boo laws would be looking at right here, and that's basically what this would be speaking towards right now. So it is saying that if the boo laws want to take their chance, they do have the ball in their court right now, and I'd imagine that these probabilities are naturally going to shift onto the downside if the boo laws fail to even get a closure above like 10.7 today on a time frame that even matters. So that's kind of the way that I read it. But of course, a more neutral interpretation is realistically that yes, the upside does have more probability right now, and it is suggesting that if the bulls want to take control, they do it sooner rather than later. So I should separate my opinion from technical analysis in this regard. What else do we want to check out? Did I check out everything that I want to see? Maybe Mr. Buteau really quick, as what you doing, sir? What you doing? 349.5. Very similar chart to Bitcoin, but this one already did make a new lower low, especially a lot easier to see on a daily. So we got your high, your low, your lower high, your lower low, and your next lower high right here. So it would suggest that we're just playing in between a range between about 361 on the upside and about 321 to the downside. And major moving averages would be in a slightly more bearish posturing. We do see daily momentum oscillators technically pointed north right now, or trying to point north, snaking around there. Let's see what would be needed to actually close them above there, or sorry, turn them back or keep them to the upside. We need to close above 345 and 40 cents. That's on a daily, by the way. On a 12-hour, what do we see? It's technically down right now and will remain to the downside as long as we're below 357. So tight ranges here. Which means that I'd be very hesitant to be calling anything over a weekend, but fair enough. That would be it if I did have to play it right here. Looking at a 4-hour, what do we see? We do see momentum technically up here as well, but trend is your friend, and momentum remains the upside as long as we're above 341 and 40 cents. Take that as you will. 4-hour historical volatility percentile, very, 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 very similar to Bitcoin. Extremely low right now. I do believe that we're going to be seeing a move. Any time after CME's open today is fair game. But this one's obviously a lot more bearishly biased. Looking at a weekly, what do we see? Weekly just looks weird. Yeah, I don't really have much to make off the weekly. Weekly just looks bizarre. So I don't really have much to make out of that. What about the monthly? Seeing as we did just close one, that does look like not a bearish engulfing, but a doji little nonetheless. I wouldn't mind another test back down to the 10 simple long term. Anyways, it's like I wouldn't mind it. Sounds so fucking dumb. Anyways, I think it's time for me to wrap this bitch up. We could also look at expected moves as well. By the way, you can find all these in the description below. I'm an indicator shill now. No, I do support indicators that I do use myself. So Pig's giving me the opportunity to use these, and I'm more than happy to shout them out in exchange for having these tools. Anyways, checking out this right here, first standard deviation showing between 10.2 and 10.9. That's basically your prior low and your prior high on the daily. So it is saying that, with there's about less than a 6% chance that we break out of either side. 32% chance combined, if I'm doing my mental maths right, which I'm probably not because I'm already fucked up today. Anyways, looking at the yellow, which is our second standard deviation, that actually correlates with the range lows and highs, more so around 11.1, or I guess this one technically 11.2 right now, so not exactly precisely there. And same thing to the downside as well, grabbing onto the 200 exponential average. Isn't that crazy how these things naturally have confluence? Isn't that fucking crazy? Yeah, you can use the reason why we use a lot of these tools because they're naturally gonna tell each other where they agree, and that's usually going to be a really good area for playing counter moves. In this case, probably a nice bounce around here. And where's the third standard deviation? Right around the 200 simple, and into the upside. Where is it? At about coming down from about 11.6. So I imagine that probably lines up with 11.5 within the next day or two. But yeah, looking at this right here, what does it tell us? It tells us that we're most likely to just play at a range. Anyways, going back down to the lower term time frames, or do we even need to do that? Just putting on our drawing tools, I guess. Very short term, I do think that we just saw that move to about 10.650. Does this get another splurt up and get a quick wick to like 10.7 or 10.750? Possible, yes, but I would be looking for a pushback there, or just where we are right now. I don't have a strong opinion on that. My strong opinion is that we're probably unlikely to end above it on a closure, even on a 4-hour total time frame right here. And as long as that's happening, I'll just be looking for this range to continue between where we are right now, essentially, and in that 10.350-ish region. And that really doesn't give you too much from even like a short-term or medium-term time frame idea. But it does set up this incoming week for an actual break of the greater range, which again is about 11,000 to the upside, or I would even say 10,220 to the downside on the daily closure, because that technically is your continuation point. And that's where things get interesting once again. So I think I will be leaving it off right there. I want to wish you well. I want to wish you the best. I want to wish you a better morning than myself. Take care, and until next time.